Hey there, business owners. Welcome back to another episode of Bold with Brooke, the podcast and place to be if you want to make a living doing what you love. Welcome back. I'm so happy that you're here. This is the first episode after SEO summer, and today is kind of a special episode. I'm going to talk about 4 lessons that I've learned in podcasting that have affected me in my life and my business. And actually, there's really 5 because I kind of went on a tangent with another one, but we're going to call it 4 because I prepared for this episode. I actually created as part of a larger project for my Toastmasters Pathway Completion, but it is absolutely relevant. It's not about Toastmasters, although I do introduce a little bit at the beginning. This is all about authentic, being imperfect, and moving forward anyway in your business and your marketing. Let's listen in to 4 lessons that I've learned from podcasting when it comes to my life and my business. Hello there, gorgeous business owners. Welcome to Bold with Brooke, the podcast for creative business owners to learn the marketing and business skills they need to get more clients and design their lives on their terms so we can actually make a living doing what we love. Am I right? I am your host, Brooke Summer, and I'm an entrepreneur, educator, and champion of women, reminding them to embrace and step into their power. I'm bringing almost 20 years of business and marketing experience straight to you to help you get more clients and run a sustainable and successful business without burnout or overwhelm. Let's jump into today's topic. Hello, business owners. Welcome back to another episode of Bold with Brooke, the podcast and place to be if you want to actually make a living doing what you love. First, I want to say thank you so much for all of the super kind and grateful messages that I got when it comes to SEO Summer. So many people told me how much they love that series. I know that I hadn't put any SEO stuff on the podcast just yet, so I was super excited to kind of throw all of it together so that we can get you started on SEO. If you need more help, Bold Marketing Academy is always available, and you can read more at boldmarketingacademy.com. But I wanted to say a quick thank you for all of the notes and messages because I had as much fun doing the series as it seemed that you had listening to the series. So thank you so much for sending those. I know you can probably understand that when you're creating content and no one responds, you feel like you're talking to crickets. And so I really, really appreciate those messages. I have a little bit of a special episode for you today. It is absolutely relevant to you and your marketing and your business, but it is also part of an assignment that I have for my Toastmasters Pathway Completion. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Toastmasters first. This is not a commercial. You don't have to join. It's cool if it's not your thing, but we're going to talk about marketing after this, so stick with me. Toastmasters is a nonprofit organization that helps people develop public speaking and leadership skills through a network of clubs. So there's a lot of clubs in most major cities. Some of the clubs, even if you're not close, you can actually attend a club virtually, depending on how the club is set up. Some are in person, some are hybrid. Ours is a hybrid club. So we do have people that attend virtually. We even have people that don't necessarily live in the same state or even the same country that can attend our meetings through a Zoom link. And in September of 2022, I started looking into it. Now, years and years and years ago, I was at, was it Denny's or IHOP? Something like that. Maybe Perkins. Gosh, that's a blast from the past. But I was sitting at this restaurant in the morning, and I remember my son was really little, like toddler. So this was probably 18 years ago or so. And I saw someone put up a banner and it said Toastmasters. And I asked someone, what is Toastmasters? And they explained it to me as a public speaking organization, which is great. I looked into it then. I didn't really find any clubs that worked for me. They were all very early morning, which is definitely not my thing. And so I gave up. Fast forward to September of 2022. I started looking into it again. I started sending some messages to clubs, kind of avoided the super early morning clubs. I'm sure they're amazing, but mornings are just not my thing. And I looked into it and I found a club called Tech Center Toasters. The people seemed super nice when I talked to them via email. In January 2023, I joined the club officially. I attended meetings regularly. We meet twice a month, and I attended in person regularly, sometimes on Zoom if I wasn't feeling well. And in June 2023, I was elected president for my year term. Presidents can't serve more than one term at a time in Toastmasters. At the time, I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Why am I president? And so many people saw that I would make a great president. And I then led our club to President's Distinguished Distinguished status, which is the highest status that you can reach within Toastmasters for a club. So I did pretty darn well. And I feel like that's another episode that we're going to talk about. But I wanted to share a little bit of background because this particular episode is all about 4 lessons I've learned in podcasting. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I am working on the persuasive influence pathway within Toastmasters. And my level 4 project is to start a podcast. Tomorrow in the Toastmasters meeting, I am supposed to give a 2 to 3 minute introduction, a speech in person, and then I'm supposed to play a 5 to 10 minute podcast segment as part of my speech for this particular project within my Toastmasters pathway. Today's episode is 4 lessons that I've learned in podcasting, and I'm going to share part of this at my Toastmasters meeting tomorrow. Obviously, I can only share a small part of it, so if you're listening live to the episode, welcome in because you're going to get to hear the whole thing. And if you're in my Toastmasters club and you're like, I just wanted to hear all of it, welcome. It's so good to have you here. And if you're not and you want to look into Toastmasters yourself, by all means, please go to toastmasters.org and look for clubs near you. If you want my club information, because we are hybrid, I'm happy to give it to you. I will say it is something that has pushed me outside of my comfort zone consistently. And while I wasn't terrified of public speaking previously, like I know so many people are, it wasn't something that I felt 100% comfortable with. I felt like I would trip over my words, and I didn't give myself the time to speak eloquently on subjects that I knew a lot about. I was definitely an expert in or knowledgeable in, but my brain kind of gets ahead of my mouth. And sometimes I trip over my words because I'm so excited and there's so many things that I want to tell you. And I had to learn to slow myself down. And that has been one of my biggest lessons in Toastmasters is getting up consistently, slowing myself down so that my brain doesn't go gaga crazy in trying to share all of the things that I want to share. Today, 4 lessons I've learned in podcasting. And it's so funny. One of the things that I've really learned in podcasting, it's not one of the lessons we're going to talk about today, was in filler words. And I never even thought about this until I was in Toastmasters because at the meeting when you speak, there is a person whose role is just to count all of the filler words. Those are things like and, so, double clutches, which is like when you repeat something. Did you notice what I did there? Those are counted every single meeting, which sounds terrifying, right? But one thing that kicked me of that habit is podcasting. When I had to record my own podcast episodes and edit my own podcast episodes, I had to actually go through and remove a million so's. I don't know why that is my filler word of choice. I don't know why I lean on that so heavily, but I will go, so let me tell you. And oh my gosh, I drove myself crazy, y'all. I was listening to this and editing and it really broke me of that. And that was kind of in tandem with Toastmasters and learning and forcing myself to be more deliberate about what I'm saying so that I'm not leaning on those words. That is probably one, maybe I should have called it 5 lessons, but anyway, let's go into 4 lessons I've learned in podcasting. The first is authenticity. Now, this is really the case in all marketing, not just podcasting. Podcasting is one way that we are creating content, right? I'm creating content for you that is free content. You can learn through my podcast without spending anything. If you have a phone or an internet connection, you can listen in and learn, and that is free content that's available to you, which is part of my marketing. What am I marketing? I'm marketing Bold Marketing Academy because I want to get you in there because A, I want to help you first and foremost, and B, that's part of my business. It's part of my revenue. I can confidently say that the marketing and podcast episodes that I've done that were the things that I really wanted to do and the things that were aligned with me and the business that I wanted to have always outperformed anything else. And this sounds like kind of a duh moment, but there are so many people that teach marketing and they give you a list of the types of things that you're supposed to do. You need to do this post and you need to do this post and you need to do this email. And the reality is that there is no one size fits all when it comes to any type of marketing, podcasting included. I've done some podcast episodes that make people go, really? Business lessons from hot firefighters dancing on stage? And guess what? Yep. That episode is not only relevant and awesome, if I do say so myself, but it's very popular. The strategies that I teach aren't really popular anymore because social media took over and became the go-to for marketing. But guess what? Those strategies that I teach and use myself, they're still working for me in my business over a decade later. These are long-term strategies. Social media is not. And again, I don't hate social media, but when it comes to social media, I don't want to be constantly on. I don't want to have to think about what 3 videos am I going to share today? What content do I have in my life that I can share? Do I have to clean up my office because it's a complete disaster right now? Do I have to talk about fall because, oh, look, the first day of fall was this week? I don't want to constantly have to think about that. And when I try, it doesn't work well for me because that energy, the kind of ick factor that I feel, comes across in what I'm doing. Doing my podcast episodes and other marketing efforts from a place of alignment, focusing on the things that I really want to share, outperform everything else time and time again. That authenticity is so important. Now, am I saying that you should completely ignore the people who are teaching you other strategies? Definitely not. There is always room to learn and grow. And if there's something you want to learn, by all means, consume that information unless it's procrastinating, which we've talked about before. But make sure that you're taking the things that you're learning and making them work for you. And I tell my students that too. This is not just for every other teacher in the world. This is for the things that I teach as well. If you have ever downloaded one of my templates or resources, you'll notice that there are a ton of custom prompts and spaces for you to make them your own for your own business. Trying to copy them exactly or use a cookie cutter piece from anyone else's business without customizing it will only lead to more roadblocks down the road, even if it works short term. Authenticity matters. Decide who you're speaking to, who you want to attract, and what you want to share, and do so authentically and in total alignment with what you want to grow. Number 2, in lessons I've learned from podcasting, because we're not counting the whole so thing. Number 2, done is better than perfect. I feel like if I ask my BMA students and clients to tell me one thing that I say to them all the time, it would be this: done is better than perfect. I have had to embrace this even more lately with SEO Summer because I wanted to have the series done and completed before the end of September, and I didn't have time to do all of the show notes that I usually love to do. We've been traveling. My daughter has had softball tournaments. It has been kind of a crazy month. I had to force myself to publish those episodes. I have to take a breath there because I had to force myself to publish them without everything being perfectly in place on the back end. I cannot even tell you how much that bothered me at the time, and now I'm so glad that I did it because even though the show notes aren't complete and perfect, the episodes are up and they're done and they're on time. And I have recorded 7 episodes in one day to get that series up and going, which will be another podcast episode entirely for my ADHD friends out there. And I'm so proud that they were not delayed at all, even if the show notes still aren't done yet, because they will be batched in the future. Hopefully today, maybe not, who knows? Done is better than perfect. How many things are you not doing because you think they're not perfect? What are you holding back on because you don't have it just right yet? What is that costing you? Not just in revenue loss, but in the mental energy and gymnastics that is being spent constantly thinking about it. Or even worse, beating yourself up about it because you know you want to do it and you should do it, but you don't because it's not perfect. For me personally, I've put off doing things for far too long because I wanted them to be perfect. I have so many projects I bought the stuff for. I'm not really sure how to do it entirely just yet, and so I don't even start. And then I forget about it and it doesn't happen at all. I have put things off way too much, and I am now watching this manifest in my daughter, and that has been a huge eye-opener for me because I don't want that for her. I want her to live her life fully, to fully embrace whatever she's working on, even if it's imperfect, even if we mess it up. So I have to start working on it myself, and I'm pulling her along because both of us are going to be working on that. My podcast has forced me to show up even when it's not perfect or exactly the way I want it to be, because none of us are perfect, right? One of my coaches says that we have to be okay with B- work. And just that very sentence makes me cringe internally. And it's not because I was a straight A student. It's because I want to do things in a way that is excellent. Excellence matters to me. I want to make sure that I'm putting out content that's great, that's helpful, that's valuable. But if it keeps me from doing it because I want it to be perfect, it's not worth it. We have to be okay with done, even if something isn't perfect. And podcasting has been something that has forced me to learn that more than anything else I've done in my business. Done is better than perfect. Do not put off the things that you want to do, the things that you want to learn, the projects you want to work on, the goals you want to work towards, because you're waiting for them to be perfect. Because guess what? Perfect doesn't exist. It's not real. Because as soon as you think something is perfect and you do it in a way that you think is perfect, you're going to learn and be a different person. And now all of a sudden, that's not so perfect anymore. Perfection does not exist. We have to be okay with done is better than perfect. Lesson number 3, promotion and marketing matters. Y'all, we are overwhelmed with ads and marketing right now. We have grown somewhat immune to what we see around us, which is actually neurobiological, in case anyone wants to geek out with me over that, because I find it absolutely fascinating. I've talked about it before, the RAS, the reticular activating system. So if you want to know more, check out episode 110 or Google it. It's fascinating. But we have so many marketing messages thrown at us daily that we now tune things out. Pair that with algorithms that are ever changing and punishing businesses in various ways. That's a rabbit hole that I'm not going to talk about today, but just sharing something on social media isn't enough. Now, if that's all you want to do, do it. If that's all you can do right now, if that's all you have the bandwidth for, do it. Because as we mentioned before, done is better than perfect, and sharing somewhere is better than nothing. The episodes that I publish for my podcast that I actually send out to my email list have at least twice the downloads and listens, sometimes 3 and 4 times the stats that another podcast episode does. That is wild, y'all. If you are putting the time into creating something that is long form, whether it's a video or a podcast episode or a blog post, why are you not sharing it? Again, this is an entirely separate podcast episode because we're going to talk all about repurposing content. It's absolutely essential for so many reasons, but far too many people create something and then they don't share it. Why? Why would you put so much work and time and effort into something you love and believe is important? Because you wouldn't create it if you didn't think it was somewhat important, right? And then just leave it, hoping for the best. Even Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds had to do appearances and marketing stunts for Deadpool, and that movie was pretty much a given hit based on the Marvel fans and the Disney franchise. I'm just saying, y'all. Okay, people were waiting for that movie for what felt like forever, and yet they are still out marketing their little butts off. Nice butts off, maybe. They're still out there marketing for it. They had to do the appearances. They had to do the work for a movie that is a multi-million-dollar movie. And if they are doing all of those things that they need to do, why would you not share your own creations? Creating the content isn't enough, regardless of the platform. We need to share things. We need to promote things. We need to make sure that we're getting the word out about what we've created and what it is that we help people with and how we serve people. Promotion and marketing matters. We cannot just create something and then hope that people see it. It's up to us to bring people to that amazing piece of content, art, or whatever service you're working on to show them how awesome it is. Number 4 in 4 lessons that I've learned in podcasting, size matters. Not like that, y'all. Get your minds out of the gutter. Don't mind me over here with my 12-year-old sense of humor. Hey, here it is. I'm a talker, okay? My nickname from my 2nd grade teacher was Babbling Brook, and my dad took it and ran with it and literally still calls me that to this day, and I'm 42 years old. I'm pretty sure that every single teacher I had in elementary school said, Brooke does very well, but needs to stop socializing in class. There's a meme that has been circulating for a few years now that says, everyone who had talks too much on your report cards, what do you do for a living now? We have podcasts. Duh. When it comes to podcasting, more talking is not always better. Seriously, size matters. My episodes used to be super long. Now, admittedly, most of those were guest interviews, which always take a more conversational turn, and they're usually longer. But this year, I've been focusing on 0 guests and great content, and many of my episodes in 2024 have been quite a bit shorter, and I'm not even sad about it. I started thinking about this from a consumer perspective, of someone who listens to hours upon hours of podcasts, and I realized that when I see an episode in my feed that's over an hour long, it almost always goes to the later pile. And that later pile is almost never looked at. I know this, but it's not. Life moves at a pace that most of us are just trying to keep up with, often because of the things that we can't necessarily control. Shorter episodes and content are easier for me to consume personally, and I love some great information that is succinct and short. This doesn't mean that I won't have longer episodes, but I've noticed that the shorter episodes are typically listened to earlier after being published, because my stats show me how many listens did you have in the first 7 days, how many in the first 30 days, and so I get all of that detail. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that has a miles long to be listened to pile, often because the episodes are just so long. I am kind of a history geek, y'all, and when I looked for history-based podcasts because I wanted to listen to something that was a little different, I had a long drive, the episodes were often 3 hours long. 3 hours. That's just not going to happen for me, y'all. I was shocked. I'm like, can we really not share this story in an hour or less? That was so long. Watching the size and length of my content, 12-year-old sense of humor snicker there, forced me to really consider what I was creating from a consumer perspective. I shortened my episodes, I made them more straightforward without as much talk, and it also takes some of the pressure off of me. I don't have to create hour-long episodes for them to be valuable or listened to. I don't have to make something huge for it to matter. Sometimes longer is not better. Sorry, y'all, the innuendo is just writing itself over here. I swear, I'm not trying to. Consider what your audience wants to consume. Do they want the shorter form content? If yes, how can you create the long form content for SEO and long-term marketing purposes, and then pull that short form out of it and break it out to support both sides? We talked a little bit about this in episode 122 during SEO summer, because so many people tell me that they can't work on SEO because they're not blogging. Y'all, content comes in many different forms, and the algorithms will often determine what people are consuming because it's what is shown to them more often. Right now, short form video is having its heyday, but the videos are being created and they often lead to longer form content. How many times have you watched an Instagram reel or a TikTok video that says, hey, here's where my YouTube channel is if you want the full story, right? You want that story, you're going over there, because when someone is interested in that video that's only a minute long, they might want to learn more. And then you have that opportunity available for them, and it's beneficial for both parties in so many different ways. Size matters, and longer is not always better. How can you make your content more valuable without making it longer? What can you add or remove to update it to make it even more relatable, valuable, and shareable? We have super short attention spans in our world right now. We need to make sure that we are paying attention to that and creating accordingly. That, my friends, are 4 lessons that I've learned from podcasting, with kind of a little bonus at the beginning. And just in case you want to recap, number 1 is authenticity is so important. Number 2, done is better than perfect. Number 3, promotion and marketing matters. And number 4, size matters. I started my podcast in 2018. I am now over 6 years in. And while I haven't been entirely consistent, which is something I'm a little torn on, I used to beat myself up about it. I'm starting to look at that from a totally different perspective. Regardless of consistency, I keep going. I haven't given up, and I'm kind of proud of myself for that. My episodes have changed and evolved as I've grown, and I've learned so much in doing my podcast. I've even thought of doing a second one that isn't for business owners like this one, but for my boudoir clients, to tell them all of the things that I want to tell them in an easy way that they can consume it. But I don't have the bandwidth to do that right now. So Bold with Brooke is the only podcast for me right now. I'm not saying in all of this that you should start a podcast, but I do think that you should have one particular method of sharing content that you don't give up on, even when you mess it up, even when you're not consistent, even when it's not perfect. For me, that's podcasting. That's the way I share my teaching content. And TikTok is my social media of choice when it comes to business. I'm on Facebook more personally, but TikTok is where I go to share business stuff. And you don't have to do all the things. Trying to do so will often burn you out rather quickly. I choose to create on one and then I share to others, which again, a whole different podcast episode. But choose one. You don't have to do all the things. Choose something that you enjoy and that you're going to stick with and that is aligned with you and your business, and really work on it. Focus on it and don't give up. Keep sharing what you do because it's important. If you loved this content, loved this episode, loved SEO Summer, loved all the things, and you're like, Brooke, this was awesome. How can I thank you? I would be so honored if you would head on over to iTunes and leave a review. For a quick and easy way to find it, you can go to boldwithbrooke.com/iTunes. You can go ahead and pause. I'll wait. because that is what allows us to bring in amazing guests and keep producing the content to help more people. Look, y'all, I am not an Apple person. I'm an Android person. I do have an iPad. So if you're not an Apple person, you're like, Brooke, why iTunes? It's because that is where people look for those reviews. I get it. I'm not there either, but that is where people are looking. And so we want to make sure to have those reviews over there. I'm so happy to have been Amazon's featured podcast, along with being one of the top 3% of podcasts on marketing in the world. And I'm so passionate about helping you move your business forward. This podcast is free, and those reviews are like a little thank you, a little tippy or a little podcast currency. And we so appreciate all of them, and they cost you nothing. So that's always a bonus. I would love to know some of your biggest aha moments or takeaways. You can share them in the community at boldwithbrooke.com/community, just our little cozy corner of Facebook, or you can take a screenshot and tag me on social at boldwithbrooke on pretty much all the social platforms. Your business is just one way that you move through the world and impact people in the way that you choose. It's time to really step into that power and own it, including marketing your business to get the clients you want and need to reach your biggest goals. I can't wait to see what you do with your business and how you change the world, because what you do matters. Thank you so much for joining me today and listening in. You can find all of the show notes for this and every episode over at boldwithbrooke.com/podcast, where you can also find all of the links or resources mentioned. I can't wait to work with you. Have an amazing rest of your day.